All right, Saints fans and who that's Kyle T. Mosley here with Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz. What's going on, Bob?
Good evening, Mr. Mosley. Good evening, Saints News Network viewers and Bayou Blitz family. I am, I'm sad to report that Brendan Boylan is continuing his road show. But I am thrilled to be joined by the original member of the Bayou Blitz and our boss at the Saints News Network, Mr. Kyle T. Mosley. Kyle, it's Thursday night football, so everything feels a little bit off. How you doing tonight?
Well, I got to do it like Al Pacino. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. And it's good to be back in, man. It's Thursday night. I feel like my equilibrium is off a little bit, to be honest with you, Bob. I mean, think about it. When we think about Sunday, okay, we could deal with that. We could deal with a Monday game, but a Thursday game kind of throws you off a little bit, man. But it's good. We got prime time football on Amazon Prime. And we got the New Orleans Saints. They in Glendale against the Arizona Cardinals. And both of these teams, Bob, right now it's a win or die type of situation almost in a lot of regards, man, because I think it's just from a mental standpoint, these guys have to put a W on the board. What you think?
Hey, Kyle, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you hate to hit the panic button before even mid-season, but both of these teams had such high expectations, not only within their own fan base, but through a good portion of the national media as well. And both teams have disappointed, for different reasons. Yet there are some similarities in their disappointments. But you're right. The loser of this game, they're not out of it by any stretch of the imagination mathematically. But both teams are playing in divisions, the NFC West and NFC South, where the top record is only 3-3 right now. Right. But you got to believe that a loss really damages a team's psyche. Going into the midway portion. These guys are human. So self-doubt has to start creeping in. If you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, shoot yourself in the foot and continue to pile up losses in that L column.
Yeah, well, I like to call it. We have some, when you go on a streak of points, unanswered points. We got some unanswered questions about this Saints team as well as what's happening out in Arizona. Look, they paid Kyler Murray a boatload of money this offseason, and they're not reaping the rewards. DeAndre Hopkins was on suspension for 6 games. They didn't have anybody else in the wide receiving core that really stepped up. I know they traded for Robbie Anderson, who always gave the Saints kind of fits at times, and now our secondary is depleted. Sean Lattimore is out. Paulson Adebo, I hadn't seen. Did John release the inactive report yet?
Not that I saw, Kyle, but we know that Paulson has still been dealing with that ankle injury that he suffered late in preseason. And even the last couple games when Adebo has played, he hasn't looked anywhere near the Paulson Adebo we're used to seeing.
Yeah, he was getting toasted. Let's just call it what it was, guys. I saw it firsthand in the Superdome, man. He was getting toasted. And I would like to say this. I don't think the panic button is quite what we need to talk about right now. But we got some unanswered questions from the standpoint of what's happening with this offensive line. Now, a lot of people say, well, Kyle, you must be going crazy. The boy can't see. That's why he's wearing those spectacles right now. Now, I see it quite well because, they're doing well in the run phase of the game. But in the pass blocking, it has a lot to be desired, man. And Bob, I gotta ask you, because you always you're a straight shooter. You always hit me when I need to be hit, even when I try to bob and weave. But bottom line is, the line is not doing what they have been paid to do. Eric McCoy received the extension this offseason, right? Cesar Ruiz is a number 1 player that they drafted out of the University of Michigan. Where the hell has Ryan Ramczyk been? Okay. Let's see. Andrus Peat pec injury. When I saw that on Sunday, remember I put it in our chat. I said,
Yeah.
did he just get injured? Yeah, he got injured, man. That pec is hurting. We don't know if it's torn or not, so I don't want to speculate there. But James Hurst is James Hurst. He's a backup for the rookie, and hopefully we will see him within the next couple of weeks if he's healthy and ready, But right now, that I have to say it like this, Bob. Who would you need to rely on as the vocal leader of that squad? Who's the guy that is stepping up? I thought that was going to be Ramczyk, especially after Teron Armstead left. But it seems to be that Teron Armstead was more important than we really realized.
Yeah, and that's no disrespect, to James Hurst, who I think is a serviceable tackle. But you're talking about Teron Armstead, who is among the best tackles, either left or right, in the entire National Football League. And we know that Armstead was the leader of that group. We did not know how important that leadership role was until now, because you're right. I expected Ryan Ramczyk to maybe take a step forward as far as the leadership responsibilities. If not he, then maybe Eric McCoy, who's one of the better centers in the National Football League, and it just hasn't happened. I really thought that this line would be better than what it was, because even early in the season, I mean, you're right. I mean, this group is just, they're road graders in the running game right now. But even early in the year, they weren't establishing control of the line of scrimmage. And folks, we try to paint a positive twist on what we see with the New Orleans Saints when we write our articles and when we do our shows. And the positive twist, as far as the pass protection goes, is that Andy Dalton has only been sacked 4 times in the last 3 weeks. But you look a little deeper, and this is what Kyle's pointing out. One of the reasons, that the main reason that is because Dalton gets rid of the ball so much quicker than Jameis Winston, which is a good thing. But the bad part to that is Dalton has to get rid of the ball that quick. Otherwise, he's going to be on his back. Teams are continuing to effectively blitz the Saints up the middle, victimizing those interior blockers. McCoy, who's having a down year. Ruiz, who's better as a run blocker, but still, I keep calling him a human turnstile, as a pass protector. Hurst. First is I have every show I've been on. I've refrained from doing it in our articles, I think. But James Hurst, I've always said, a serviceable tackle, but much more effective as a guard. So he's a little bit out of position right now. So this group hasn't come together as a unit, but individually. And right back to Ryan Ramczyk, an all-pro caliber player, just seems like a shadow of his former self for now over a calendar year. So the individuals are playing below expectations as well.
That's a good point, because ever since that injury, right, he really hasn't been the Ryan Ramczyk that we have known and loved. Remember, he had the provision in his contract to be able to take over the left tackle spot.
Yeah.
That didn't materialize. There was possibly a reason why it hadn't materialized. Jameis Winston was getting the ball off at 2.4 seconds. 2.4 seconds before his injury, where the New Orleans Saints allowed him to play with 4 broken vertebrae in his back. I don't know. I need to check the stats on Dalton. I'll check those in a few minutes. But bottom line is, right now, that's a unanswered question when it comes to what's going to happen with the New Orleans Saints offensive line. And the play calling. Play calling was modified for Andy Dalton. And I have to be able to say that, because if you look at what happened in the first halves of the games that Jameis Winston did play, it was very pass happy. Very pass happy. And the play calling from Pete Carmichael was such. They didn't take advantage of the run game. When they did have success, especially when we were in Atlanta, and I saw how Taysom was able to be effective in a little bit Alvin was as well.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden they stopped it and they started passing. So I'm just going to say there was a modification there. And I know some people are saying in the national media, I think, who was it? Rappaport or Pelissero talked about last weekend the Saints are trying to figure out if Andy Dalton was going to become the starter.
I think it was Tom. I think it was
Okay.
Tom Pelissero.
So, hey guys, I'm just going to say it like this, and I don't disagree with much that Jeff Duncan says, writes, but I had to agree with him on his article about Jameis Winston needs to be the starter, not Andy Dalton. Now, I know I'm going to get some hate mail. Send those directly to Bob Rose. I don't read them. So, but I saw a problem in the Vikings game as well as in the game against now the Seattle game. He did play decent, but he did have some backup with the run game, and the defense did provide some crucial stops at times. But when I looked at the entire performance and you look at the stats and you go through the tape again, when you watch what's happening, he just played a good, manageable game. Andy Dalton is not going to give you that comeback, rah type of game that you're going to need to have somebody to pass down the field at times. Now, you down your top receivers. You down Michael Thomas. You down Jarvis Landry. We don't know if Olave is going to be back from concussion protocol this game, right? So what do you do as a team? You have to rely on the strength that you do have, and that's the run game. And the run game right now is dictating how the New Orleans Saints offense is ran. Thus, you see the success. This is not a Drew Brees offense. This is not a Sean Payton offense. This is a different offense and different animals. The New Orleans Saints have started, 5 quarterbacks over the past 3 or 4 seasons, the most of any in the NFC at this time. So think about that. We have had some different changes that has gone on, and Drew Brees is not running out of the Caesar Superdome tunnel anytime soon. Okay. All right, guys. It was Pelissero. Thank you, Gypsy Quill. And let us know how you guys feel about this. Bob, any last thoughts on the offensive line before we move on?
Yeah, you mentioned the first round draft choice, Trevor Penning. Where we've been hearing, including from our own John Hendricks, the Penning is going to run in the next few days, see how that foot and that ankle, because that's an issue too when you have a foot injury, see how that responds before they put any kind of timetable on his return. Andrews Pete, anytime an NFL player is dealing with a pec injury, more often than not, it's season ending. But like Kyle said, we're not going to speculate. Calvin Throckmorton is slated to step in for Andrus Peat, and I thought Throck played extremely well when he replaced Pete last year. But with Calvin Throckmorton, you're getting a limited player. He's not nearly as athletic as any of those other interior guys. So Pete Carmichael was going to be a little bit limited with what he's going to do in the screen game off of that left side and any off tackle or pitch plays. So watch for that as well. What I do like that the Saints are doing with their offensive line and the subsequent running game is, in years past and the last few recent years especially, we've seen them concentrate most of those runs with Kamara on their right side, Kamara and Taysom Hill. Pete's switching it up, and it seems like a very subtle change, but if you're a defensive coordinator, it's huge. Taysom is having much more of his success on the left side this season.
Right.
Alvin, they're starting to get Alvin more involved in the screen game, over on the left side this season. So watch and see how that transpires tonight. That forces Cardinals right defensive end J.J. Watt to cover the entire width of the field to get to the outside and make a play. And Watt, while still a great player, he's no spring chicken. that could wear him down. So, I see, and you kind of alluded to this, even with Olave back in the lineup, and we do think he'll play tonight, the Saints are still going to focus on a run-first game plan. They're going to try to spread Arizona out from sideline to sideline because, as you said, Kyle, Andy Dalton is no Jameis Winston. He's not going to hit many deep shots. His strength is working a defense through the short and intermediate zones. So, as long as Dalton gets a little bit of time to throw and they can establish the running game, that's still going to set up some down the middle intermediate shots to those guys. But it has to start with the offensive line earning their battle wins at the line of scrimmage.
Okay, good stuff. Let's go on. I put a question out there. Here's another unanswered question. Why isn't Alvin Kamara getting more of the football?
I wish I had an answer. And up until the last couple of weeks, I've been a Pete Carmichael and coaching staff in general defender. But I personally, I'm starting to call him out, and I'm starting to call out Pete. It befuddles my meager mind why you wouldn't utilize the best pass catching running back in the NFL. And we're not just talking about this season, folks. I was critical of it since the midway point of last year. Part of that's on Alvin too. And there are games to me where Alvin Kamara looks disinterested. When he comes out of the backfield.
I thought it was just me.
No.
Thank you. I don't have to be fuzzy like this again. I thought it was just me, man, because it really did appear that in a couple of the games that kind of gave up hope that they were going to get him the ball or whatever. Yeah. He was not making those attempts at the football like he used to when Breeze was back there. I'm just seeing it like I call it right now. So, but I have to agree with you on that point. But here you have a weapon like Alvin Kamara, and you do not utilize this weapon, and he has not scored a touchdown yet. You have red zone issues. Okay. And if you're not using your full arsenal, it's just like saying, I paid millions and millions of dollars, and I'm just going to keep it to myself. I'm not going to share it with nobody. I'm just going to keep it to myself. Nah, you got to share that. Put that out there. Give Kamara the ball just like you're giving Hill the ball. Or if you're giving someone else the ball, don't throw it to Adam Troutman. Don't go to somebody you're going to go to, man, And I just right now, in all honesty, I'm just being funny, guys, but Alvin Kamara needs to have the football more. And I have been puzzled about the utilization of Kamara since week 1.
Mm-hmm. And Kyle, it's more than just using Alvin Kamara because if you look at the raw numbers, he's getting his touches. But a lot of those are as a running back, and a lot of those are on interior runs. So let me ask you this question. You're my coach at the Saints News Network, and say the Saints News Network was lining up for a football game, and Bob Rose was in his prime, many decades ago. In my prime, I had 4.3 speed.
Whoa! You heard that? Not like me, 4.3 in like 10 yards. He had 4.3 in 40 yards, man. Go on, Bob.
Well, but I had 4.3 speed, but I'm also 142. The most I've ever weighed is 146 pounds.
Wow.
So having said that, would you run me up the middle, or would you want to get my speed in space?
You're going to be broken down. You're going to be broken
real quick.
Down. Yeah. Well, look, man, I see that Sean says that he felt that Kamara has been overrated in his opinion. And, you're right to have your opinion. Until somebody shows me that they can really stop him on a consistent basis, I can't say he's overrated. Especially, how about this? I'm paying you a lot of money to do this job, right? And if you're going to do the job, then let's see how well you perform. This is a production league. If you perform, you produce, you get the start. That's how I was always taught,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think right now we have a guy who is able to produce, but he's not getting the ball. So how can you give a fair evaluation there? Um, John, look, man, we need to have John Butler come on to the show. He's always behind the scenes, but he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to show his pretty face. Come on, John. We need to get you on to the show, man. But that's one unanswered question as well. Here's another unanswered question. What's going on with Cam Jordan?
Oof.
Did I step on someone's toe? I'm sorry. But I love Cam. Now, let's get this straight.
Mm-hmm.
Cam, we interviewed Cam, love
Mm-hmm.
Cam, but Lyle Collins served him
Yeah.
on Sunday. He was MIA. Am I wrong?
No, no, you're not. And up until that point, Cam got off to a slow start those first few games, but was really starting to come on. And he had 3 of his 3.5 sacks, over the previous 2 games. And so to see what I saw, against the Bengals were Lyle Collins, and it was one-on-one, blocking more often than not. Lyle Collins just silenced, at Mr. Jordan in a way that we haven't seen many opponents do.
He did.
So he and Cam has been one of the more consistent defenders on that unit this year. On a unit that struggled, but that just highlighted the point that this team needs Cam Jordan to produce at a high level. And shame on everybody else for relying on that. But Cam's got to have a big bounce back performance tonight, or they're in trouble.
Yeah. Cam is the vocal leader, one of the vocal leaders. He, as well as Demario Davis, of course. And you guys, we got guys who were the vocal leaders being put on injured reserve or the injury report and not starting, inactive. Right now, we need to see how these guys are able to weather through this type of situation that's going on. I know there's been some changes on in the administration. Dennis Allen is a new head coach again, but this is a situation where you need your field generals to be able to step up and be able to speak up and speak out. And I just didn't see the passion there from some of the offensive linemen. I spoke about that once before, but I don't see much of the passion from anybody. To be honest with you, man, when you're in a critical situation, maybe I'm just too excitable. I would have to say, Bob, I need you to step your rusty dusty up. We need to get this going on. I just don't see this in this team. Am I wrong? Am I seeing something that you guys are seeing differently?
No, you're not wrong in my opinion. And I've touched on this a couple of times in the past. And a lot of people want to blame the coaches and specifically Dennis Allen for this. But I'm going to respond to that in 2 ways. A, Dennis Allen is not Sean Payton. Sean Payton was an in-your-face, real fiery kind of guy. And that's not Dennis Allen's style. You can't be a person that you're not. Let Dennis Allen be the best Dennis Allen he could be. But my second response to that is, and Bill Parcells said this, while he was coach of the New York Giants. Bill Parcells, a mentor of Sean Payton, was once asked, how do you motivate Lawrence Taylor and these guys, for a big game coming up? And Parcells responded with a laugh and a couple of curse words. He said, this is the NFL. If you have to be motivated by your coach, you need to get on with with another profession. And that's the way I look at it. I do have some criticisms of these coaches, but that's not one of them. It's the players' jobs to win their battles. It's the players' job to execute, and it's the players' job to motivate themselves and their teammates around them, because these are guys that you're shoulder to shoulder with on the battlefront itself. We don't see any accountability from these players right now, and the accountability comes in the form of motivation, fiery performance, step it up when the game is on the line, and we're not seeing any of that from very, very few of these players.
Look, I heard, I listen to Moving the Chains all the time with Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller. Pat Kerwin said it best. When Bill Parcells took over the New York Jets, the Jets were like last in the league
Mhm.
in penalties, right? When he took those guys over the next season, they were number one in that division in penalties, meaning they didn't have penalties, very few. So it starts with the head coach and it ends with the head coach. But when
Mhm.
it comes to discipline and playing undisciplined ball, I see it in the college football ranks, and because I cover HBCUs. If you are not disciplined at that, if we keep having the same reoccurring penalties over and over and over again, if you're not going to sit those players, if you're not going to hold them accountable, why should they think about what they're doing and how they are
Right.
hurting the team or not? Right? And I saw something with Demario Davis was kind of a shock to me when, even Demario hitting Joe Burrow was surprising. I know he let up, but even hitting him or even coming around him was kind of a surprise to me. So that helped to extend a drive. And these penalties come at the most opportune times a lot of times, and we could say it's the zebras' fault, and we could say they need to have more clarity in their vision, of course. I do agree that there's been some very questionable calls for that went against the New Orleans Saints, but I have to also say we have been playing some very undisciplined football at times.
Yeah, and like when you jump off sides, or you're called for a false start. Those are a couple penalties that you can't question those. I mean, yeah, everybody in the universe sees it, and that's happened to kill drives, or if you're a Saints player, you might want to think or keep in the back of your head, you know what, we're not having any of these calls go against us as a team, me as a player, whatever the case may be, where I'm playing a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers. I know that they're going to get all the calls all the time. That means you, the player, have to be sharper and cleaner in what you're doing. And Kyle, you talk about undisciplined play, and I've been yanking my hair out about it all year.
Don't go there, please.
It's more than just the penalties. You fumble the ball when it's you fumble the ball repeatedly. That's discipline. You've blown coverages, whiffed blocks, lack of effort or positioning on tackles. Those are all lack of discipline. And yeah, it's going to fall on the head coach and the coaching staff. But again, those players on the field are the ones responsible for the missed assignments.
All right. Let's hope they are able to correct that, because this is a pivotal game. I don't care what anybody says. The Saints cannot go down to another NFC opponent. Let's say you're in a tight race in the NFC South. The Saints have lost all but one game to NFC opponents right now. So you've got to be able to look at that as a tiebreaker type of situation if you're neck and neck with, let's say, the Atlanta Falcons. Who would have thunk it? But guys, forget Atlanta had the Saints on the ropes week 1. All right. Let's move on, Bob. Right now, the New Orleans Saints will be playing against Arizona. Arizona has been a conundrum themselves. What's going on with them, Bob?
Well, the surprising thing about the Arizona Cardinals is everybody assumed that they were going to have this high-powered offense. And you look at that roster, and there are some very high-profile players. Kyler Murray at quarterback, at Marquise Brown, who will be out tonight, at wide receiver, but they are getting DeAndre Hopkins back. You have Rondale Moore, James Conner, AJ Green, but you look at the Cardinals' offensive numbers, that hasn't reflected that star power. They're literally middle of the board, 16th, 17th, 18th in every offensive ranking, except for third down conversions. They're among the bottom teams in that. It's the Cardinals defense that has been a pleasant surprise, and frankly, kind of opened my eyes when I looked at them. They're the unit that's sitting near the top of the rankings. They're the ones that are creating disruption, and keeping. They're doing their job. They have held their last 4 opponents to 20 points or less. It's that offense that hasn't produced, and that has been the biggest disappointment for Cliff Kingsbury, an offensive coach, in Arizona. So, the Cardinals have their backs to the wall just as much as the Saints. This is a team that's going to have some fight and some desperation to them tonight.
Fight, desperate, because if they lose again, they're in the cellar in a competitive NFC West division. All right, so Kyler Murray, like we touched on him just briefly, but should the New Orleans Saints be afraid of what he can do with his legs? Especially the Saints at times have had trouble containing mobile quarterbacks. What's your thoughts?
Folks, viewers, if you have ever watched a New Orleans Saints game, then you already know the answer to Kyle Mosley's question. The answer is yes. These New Orleans Saints defenders and coaches should be terrified of Kyler Murray. And we're not talking about a pure option quarterback here. Yeah, Kyler Murray can make and will make plays with his legs, but Kyler Murray is among the top 2 or 3 most dangerous quarterbacks in the league when he throws on the run. And that's where the Saints secondary has already had all kinds of problems with coverage breakdowns and giving up big plays in recent weeks, especially. This has tailor-made. This game is tailor-made for Kyler Murray to break. You close your eyes, you can envision it now. Kyler Murray breaking, slipping a sack, getting outside the pocket, and hitting DeAndre Hopkins or Rondale Moore deep down the middle, where another Saints safety, I'm not mentioning any names, but he played at LSU, blew a coverage for a long touchdown. The Saints are going to have to be very, very disciplined in their pass rush assignments, while still disrupting the Arizona pass pocket or backfield, and Kyler Murray specifically. When Kyler breaks out of containment, and it will happen because he's just that good an athlete, Demario Davis, Pete Werner, we know you're athletic enough to cover sideline to sideline. You better be on number 1 real quick, because this is a guy that will throw a dagger right through their hearts.
So you still saying they have a chance?
Oh yeah, because if you're talking the Saints, you look at this defensive personnel, and I realize Marshawn Lattimore out. That's a huge blow. But all year, all off season, ourselves and the rest of the media, we're talking about how deep and talented this Saints secondary is. Well, we haven't seen it yet, but on paper, that talent is still there. It's going to take a solid coaching job to scheme these guys up right. You don't have a Marshawn Lattimore to match up one-on-one with DeAndre Hopkins all over the field. So what do? You keep your safeties, Matthew, May, Justin Evans, back for deep support, so that way you don't give up those big plays, and then you put it on your front 7 to cover for the linebackers to cover the intermediate routes, and for the front 4 with maybe a 5th rusher sprinkled in to win their battles at the line of scrimmage. You win your one-on-one battles. You don't have to blitz to get pressure on Kyler Murray, but it's on those individual players to work the scheme that's given to them.
Okay. All right, good. Jimmy Gumbo says, very concerned. 4th quarter will have me praying like never before. Oh, man. Jimmy Gumbo, I think we all have been praying quite steadily. I think we have a pipeline directly to the big man himself. All right. Saints are underdogs on the road. Andy Dalton starting. Taysom Hill seems to be the guy that's really still that spark plug, the catalyst that when the New Orleans Saints need some offensive, he gives it to you. So we can always count on Taysom. But outside of Taysom, who will be those X factors, not S factors? We could say S factors for something else, but those X factors
We just did mention the S factors when we talked about certain defensive players. Obviously, the main culprits to keep an eye on tonight for the Saints offensively are Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara. Chris Olave, who we expect to be back, will get the lion's share of the targets when they do throw the ball.
Right.
But a weapon that I'm looking at, the Cardinals, back to these surprising statistics. Only 5 players have had at least 70 yards receiving against the Arizona Cardinals this year. Those 5, there's only 2 wideouts. Juju Smith-Schuster, go figure, and Devonta Smith. That means that 3 players had over 70 yards, including one of which was the only 100-yard receiving performance against Arizona. That's Travis Kelce, tight end, Christian McCaffrey, running back, and Dallas Goedert, tight end. So, we mentioned Kamara. We know what he can do. And Kyle and I are pleading, Pete Carmichael, if you're watching our show instead of doing your job right now, get the ball to Kamara on the perimeter, get the ball to Kamara in the open field. As a receiver and off-tackle runner, it will pay. You know this, Pete Carmichael, but it will pay dividends. The other potential X factor for the Saints is a guy named Juwan Johnson. Now, Juwan has had a quietly solid season so far, I think. You're not talking about an all-pro caliber tight end here, but you are talking about a converted receiver who is the best natural pass catcher that the Saints have at tight end, who has the athleticism to get down the middle and burn defenses down the seam. You're still talking about a shorthanded receiving core with Deontay Hardy on injured reserve, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and street clothes again. So you got to get your protection from somewhere, right? If you're going against an Arizona defense who's had trouble against tight ends this year, what do you do, Pete Carmichael? Newsflash. Maybe get the ball to your tight end. So I look for Juwan Johnson. He's not going to have like a record-setting night or anything like that. But if the Saints are successful, you watch Juwan Johnson's going to have a few big catches down the seam.
All right, and I like that because Juwan Johnson, man, when I was standing next to him in the locker room, I was like, God, he's deceptively tall and strong, man. So yeah, we've got to utilize these guys. And I think right now, Sean Payton had certain plays that went to certain guys at critical times, and he called the game that way. I don't know how Pete is calling the games, and I'm not knocking him on that. All I'm saying is we've got to use the strength of the team. And if you have a guy that can be able to be a mismatch. I don't think they utilize Taysom enough as the tight end in some mismatches against those either nickel cornerbacks or some of those linebackers. And I think they've got to do a better job in finding and exploit those opportunities against the defenders. Now, the defensive backfield is my main concern going into the game.
Yeah,
Bob, I'm telling you, that is a concern because you don't want to have Anderson to have a career day. You don't want DeAndre Hopkins to come off the bench, literally out of work clothes, and just have one of those monster games. And he's capable of doing it. I've seen it in Houston time and time again. But what I can say is this: I just would like to see some of the passion in the heart, not just from the defensive guys, but from the offensive linemen, to be able to say that, hey, we're going to go man on man with you and we're going to smash you. I don't care if you're not coming in here, you're not getting to Dalton. Stop it. That's what I need to see. And hopefully we can see that going forward. All right, it's prediction time. Bob, who you got?
Thursday night football. First of all, it shouldn't be a thing. But as long as it brings in the almighty dollar and, the master, Roger Goodell is at the top in the office, Thursday night football isn't going anywhere. What concerns me about this game, other than the on-field issues that Kyle and I have been talking about, it's such a short turnaround week for these guys that it always benefits the home team. And I mean, always. So yeah, that's another thing working in the Saints' favor. I do believe that this will be a low-scoring defensive game, but that doesn't mean that the offense on one team or the other isn't capable of making some plays. I think that this Saints team, they have too much character in that locker room and in that huddle. They know what's at stake here. If there's a game and if there's a moment where the Cam Jordans and the Demario Davises and that experience in the locker room is going to rear its head and take charge, take this team by the throat and saying, this is what we're going to do. It's got to be tonight. I think it will be. I think they contain Murray enough, and I think the Saints control the ball on the offensive side like we've seen them flash the potential to do the last couple weeks. I'm going to go Saints will win this one 20-17.
Okay, let's see. Jimmy Gumbo, Saints 23, Cardinals 17. John Butler, what you got, man? Who you got? All right, be kind. 21-20 Cardinals. Oh, be kind. You're not so kind to the New Orleans Saints, the black and gold. John Butler, what's your prediction, man? Let's put it down in the chat. What about you, Scooby Dooby Doo too? Miss you, man. Let's see what you guys have to say. Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. All right, Scooby. 17-16. Saints win a tight one. All right. Interesting. All right, guys. Here's my prediction. New Orleans Saints 27 and the Arizona Cardinals 28. Sorry.
Well, hell.
Sorry.
Hey.
DJ Filpo, Saints 17-14.
Yeah, we try to be realistic, and our reporting guys, that, and it comes with the job. We're going to say things or write things that tick you off. We don't do it on purpose. It's our job to call as we see it. But make no mistake, this is going to be a tough one for the Saints tonight. Because again, I look for the Cardinals to come out with some fight too. They are just as desperate a team as what the New Orleans Saints are tonight.
And that's the concern I have, and that's the major concern I have right there, is because they need this as well as the New Orleans Saints, and they may have a little bit more extra to be able to will their way to a win. John Butler, thank you, my friend. 30-24 New Orleans Saints, and I'm sorry, Scooby Dooby Doo too. I just see this as one of those games that we're going to have to evaluate the Saints differently and be honest about the product that we have on the field. Now, don't get me wrong. The New Orleans Saints have a plethora of talent. And if the talent was, especially the star players, were able to play in these contests and show some consistency with their health-wise, I think the New Orleans Saints we will have a different type of record at this time. But injuries do affect a team. If the Saints can get healthy and run a string of wins as a result, and the game, look, Tampa Bay is not running away with this, and I think Tampa Bay could be in trouble this weekend themselves, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be too surprised if Atlanta becomes number one in the division. So what I'm saying is this. We don't be so fast to throw out Jameis Winston. Don't be fast to just dismiss some of the guys who are not producing as well as they can. I would like to see how they produce, the passion, the energy, if it's there, and if they're focused enough to execute and produce. If they're executing at a high level, then I think the Saints have the potential to be able to win this contest. If they go in unfocused, I think we're going to see much of the same as a whole. All right. Bob, tell everybody how they can find you on the World Wide Web.
First of all, anybody that's tuning in tonight to our live show and participating in the chat, thank you as always. You guys are what makes us us, and we got nothing but love for you because of it. Secondly, Kyle, it's I love doing the show with Brendan. I think we make a great team, but it feels good to get back to the original roots. So thank you for taking some time tonight, my friend.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And thirdly, programming alert for you guys. I know a lot of you guys that participate in our pregame also wait for our halftime. Again, bear with us. Thursday night's a weird week. A Thursday night game is a weird thing for us too. We will not be having a halftime show tonight. So make sure you tune into the Saints News Network live thread that we have going on every single week during Saints games. And Brendan and I, and maybe Kyle, if he has time, will be back on next Wednesday with our normal Bayou Blitz broadcast, hopefully to recap a Saints win. In the meantime, you can follow me on Facebook, Bob Rose. I'm over on Twitter at BobbyR2613. If you're watching us tonight, then you already know how to find the Bayou Blitz, but make sure you follow all of our works through the Saints News Network, at Saints News on Twitter, and available on all kinds of media outlets. And with that, I'll pass the baton to you, my Sprinter friend.
And look, how do you become with that 2613, man? I've always, every time I'm trying to type it, it gets all twisted up like that. He's Bob Rose.
It's real easy. It's real easy. When I did it, and this was before Mr. Will was born, so it's over 5 years old. Brianna's birthday is October 26th. Isabella's birthday is June 13th.
It'll be about another 5 minutes before I come to you, but you'll be on hold.
Okay, thank you.
If you got something to do, you got about 5 minutes, but the phone will be on hold, okay?
All right, thank you.
No, thank you, okay? Hold on.
I apologize, guys. That's another radio show. but guys, just listen. Totally unprofessional of me on that one, so I apologize. Guys, listen up to what Bob and those guys have to say, as well as follow John. We're going to have a live game thread, so follow John Hendricks as well as myself and Bob's live game thread today as well on the Saints News Network. So go to saints.media to be able to pick that up, or you can check it out. I think we'll have the link on our at Saints News Twitter page as well. Of course, you can follow me at KTMOZE on Twitter. Just smash up the likes, everything that we do, help support these guys. They're doing a tremendous job. Bob and Brendan, help them out. The Bayou Blitz, Bayou Blitz, Bayou Blitz. All right. Kyle T. Mosley out with Mr. Bob Rose. Who that's? Don't jump off the Crescent City connection just yet. The game has not yet been played, and the season is not over. Trust me. Long time, and we got to do our due diligence and just keep on supporting the boys in the black and gold. All right, take care. Bye.
Thank you. Who dat?